I'm Kay, and this is Neurodivergent Happy Hour. I'm here today with Kiera. Say hi.
Hi.
We've got a big list of things we're talking about today. Kiera is here to talk about a long list of things that she deals with on a daily basis, which is insane. I'm gonna quickly start with the most neurodivergent thing I've done this week. I didn't know what I was going to say for this, but I think I'm going to talk about the nonce epileptic attack. So before this, guys, I do like a plan on my iPad of everything that we're going to talk about, because obviously some people I'm going to have in, I'm going to want to talk about specific things, so I always write up a plan beforehand so then I can send it over to them and be like, oh, this is what we're talking about today. And Kiera responds to my Snapchat and she's like, I don't have nonce epileptic fits. I was like, what? And I sat and read through, and in my list of things that we are talking about today, I accidentally put nonce epileptic instead of non-epileptic. So that was the thing that I've done this month. The most epileptic thing? Fucking hell. The most neurodivergent thing I've done this week. Kiera, is there anything you've done this week that's been
Probably the fact that I keep forgetting that I've just had surgery and keep trying to do everything I usually do. I'm really hurting myself.
Guys, if you don't know Kiera already, that's a very typical Kiera thing to do, actually.
Kiera's very stubborn.
Yes. So, obviously, I've got a list of things here that you do deal with on a daily basis, and I do want to ask questions about things, because there's some things on here that I don't actually know about.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I know Tourette's, I know nonce epileptic attacks, I know epilepsy, migraines, obviously, anxiety, I deal with myself. What is chromosome duplication? Can you talk about it?
A chromosome duplication is the fact that obviously we're all made up of a certain amount of chromosomes from each one of our parents. So because I was the only one in my family to ever have epilepsy, they did a bunch of genetic testing on me, and they found out that I've got an extra part of a chromosome on my 22 Q11.2, which is causing the neurological symptoms that I have, so like my seizures, my Tourette's. It also causes physical symptoms, like the fact that on the side of this ear I've got a little lump, and so it causes that as well, which is really weird, and the fact that I've got an abnormally large head.
I never thought about that from you, to be honest.
That is actually scientifically proven that I have an abnormally large head.
They said that to you?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's what. That is wild. I just thought it meant you're constantly making new chromosomes. I was like, all right.
No. So obviously people with Down syndrome lack a certain chromosome. I've collected an extra chromosome.
You should
I do like to say that my conditions are a game of bingo.
Yeah.
I've nearly completed the board.
You have nearly completed the board, I must say. Obviously, you have migraines, and then disorder hemiplegic migraines.
Hemiplegic migraines, yeah.
Talk me through that a little bit.
So they are migraines, obviously, your migraines. But for me, they cause left-sided paralysis. So, it's like having a stroke, but obviously you're fully conscious. Most of the time you can still speak like you would. Sometimes there's a bit of slurred speech, but it's kind of the same as a focal seizure. So for me, my focal seizures look very similar to my hemiplegic migraine. The only difference is with the hemiplegic migraine, I have the pain in my head, whereas focal seizures, I don't. So obviously it goes completely all down this arm to this hand, all the way down my leg as well. and I can't really do anything until the paralysis wears off. So obviously doing things like going to the toilet, moving around, I
Mm,
have to be like obviously assisted with, because if not I'd fall over.
of course, of course. Obviously, so this is all due to this chromosome duplication.
Yes.
Okay.
And they, when I was 12, I was diagnosed with my migraines, and that's what they thought my seizures originally were.
Yeah.
They thought my seizures were just migraines, but then obviously at 13, they did all the tests and found out it was seizures.
Yeah. Because obviously, like, I've known Kiera for a very long time. I've known her since, well, I've known her before she knew me because I used to walk past her on the way back from school in the car waiting for her brother. So I've known Kiera since she was having migraines, and I never knew that everything was just down to this chromosome duplication. Like, obviously, other than anxiety, I'm assuming that's something that you deal with
No,
anyway.
that's more, that obviously plays a part in the non-epileptics.
Oh, here, guys, she's like the most positive human I've ever met in my whole entire life, and um, yeah. So I've got a couple of questions. I have a question that I actually got from your partner. And he was saying to me that he thinks that it'd be a good idea for me to ask this for the public to
Yeah,
support people who deal with things like you deal with things, but also, like, guys, if you have a partner who just has one of these things, you still need to support them. Like, come on now,
100%.
because even, epilepsy is a big thing to deal with.
Yup.
So obviously, he said, how does all of these things that you deal with, how do they affect your family and obviously your partner, and how do they support you?
So for me, obviously, it's very difficult. Originally, when they first started, I know for a fact it was difficult for my family trying to adapt,
Mm,
trying to obviously understand how to make things around the house safe for me,
mm,
stuff like that. And I know it's a big like impact on a lot of people. Like obviously, my parents now are very good. Like they'll know, keep the situation calm, sort of don't speak too loudly.
yeah.
Honestly, just keep, this is with my seizures, just keep everything relaxed as possible, because if they start panicking, then I start obviously panicking, and then it just makes everything 10 times worse. And
Mm,
obviously, with my Tourette's, they have to be very careful, because someone will probably end up getting assaulted if they get too close to me. Sadly, it's usually Dom, if he's around. He just
yeah.
gets a slap round the head, or Rob, he'll
This is
get a
Kira's
foot.
partner, guys. Dom is
Yeah,
Kira's partner. Rob is her
and Rob is my dad for all intents and purposes. Um,
dad.
and he's been nearly stabbed in the eye a couple of times with a fork. So, it's a bit of a, and obviously a lot of people get verbal abuse. But the funniest person dealing with my conditions has got to be my little sister.
Oh my god, she's the best, guys. She's the
Yeah,
best.
and obviously if you saw Kay's video about obviously me being on the podcast, there's the link to my channel for my conditions, and on there is my little sister explaining my conditions,
She's the best. She's
and
on.
that is the funniest thing possible, because she's just got so much sass. And obviously my condition started when she was like 1, so it's all she's ever known really. And I remember a couple of years ago she went into school and asked her teachers why nobody was like her sister.
God. But she's probably the best person for you to be around because
Yeah,
she.
I think
That's,
that's why I'm so positive about everything, because like if she's on FaceTime, she wouldn't sit there and be like, oh, I've got to go, my sister's sort of doing this. Instead, if I'm having a seizure, she'll be like, oh, she's popped off again.
yes, because Kira explains her seizures as like popping off. I don't know if anyone else does that, but
No, it was because obviously when Libby was younger, she couldn't say the word seizure. So my nan came up with the word pop off to help Libby be able to explain to like mum or Rob if something was happening and she was up here with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, it does affect your family. It does affect your partner, but
Yeah.
Kiera's also quite independent. I think you're quite independent.
I like to be independent, not that it usually goes my way.
Yes, I have heard your mum tell you off a few times, being like, "Calm down. You need to just relax."
Yeah.
So I have a question. So with your
Good.
seizure, do you hear things? Can you still hear and kind of see a little bit, or are you just completely knocked out?
So for my epileptic, my absent seizures are literally, they're about 30 seconds long. I don't even have any recollection that I've ever sort of had them.
Mm.
I'll just go about my day, like there's been situations where I've walked out in front of cars, nearly been hit by bikes, stuff like that, and I'll have no recollection. I'll just come round and cars are beeping at me and I just couldn't understand why. Obviously this was before I was diagnosed. And obviously there's been a case in Norwich where I was in JD and I was having a seizure in the doorway, between the security things.
Yeah.
And apparently the woman was standing there telling me to move, and my mum and my brother were both having like a proper go at this woman, telling her that I was having a seizure, I can't be moved. And in the end, she just gave up. But sort of that one, I can't hear. I really have no recollection. My focal seizures, I'm conscious. Like I'm still with it with the world. Like I'm just paralysed.
Mm.
And then my non-epileptic seizures is described as a computer rebooting. So like if your computer's malfunctioning, you just restart it. It's kind of like what my body does if it's been through too much that day. But I can still hear, and in some senses, I can still communicate. So my family and obviously my partner, we have a way of communicating. So if I squeeze once, it's yes. If I squeeze twice, it's no. But for the people that can spell and that aren't dyslexic, there's another way I can do it. Obviously, for like people like my dad, my boyfriend, and my brother, it's a bit difficult. And sometimes Libby, but she's getting better at spelling. I'll write like the letters on the palms of their hands.
Mm.
So obviously, it's easier for me to communicate what I actually need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can still hear and I can still communicate with my non-epileptics, but the other ones it just really varies. Yeah.
What would someone do if they saw someone in public having a seizure and they'd never seen anyone have a seizure, but there's no one around and they need to help this person? What is the best thing to do? What's the best action plan?
So first of all, I'd say as soon as you get there, put a stopwatch on, whether it's on your phone, your watch, anything like that, and keep a time record of how long you've been there with the person and they're still fitting. Because if it goes over 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, depending on the type, then you need to call 999. Second of all, I would say put them in the recovery position once they're a little less shaky if it's a tonic-clonic. And then, but the most important one I'd say is cushion the head, whether it's with a coat, whether it's a jumper, something just underneath the head, because
Mm.
obviously there's enough going on inside their brain right now. The last thing they need is to smash the head off something.
Mhm.
But also, I would check their wrists, their ankles, if they've got like a rucksack or a handbag or something, to see if they've got a care plan. But for me, hold on, I will be there in a second. I have a medical alert bracelet. So with this, there's a little QR code here, which anyone can scan on their phone, and it will bring up 4 emergency contacts. It will bring up my medication, allergies, any surgeries I've had lately, my conditions. Like obviously, it also has on there like my specialist for my neurology, so
Mhm.
that obviously it's all kind of kept in one place. Obviously, yeah, the bracelet was a bit expensive. I think it was about £17 off Amazon. But obviously you can go on as much as you want. You set a password, all this. You can go on as much as you want, change the information as and when you need to. Obviously you can put your blood type on there. You can put if you're like DNR or DNI, stuff like that. So it's a really good investment, I think. But
It
yeah,
sounds
most importantly, obviously cushion the head, like see how, like time it, and obviously put them in the recovery position when they're starting to come round, so that obviously their body doesn't go into full on shock and sort of start aspirating.
wow. Well, I feel a lot better now. I feel like if I saw someone season, I'd know what to do.
Yeah. And
um,
obviously there's 10, I'd say 5 minutes is sort of the, if you've never experienced a seizure before, ring an ambulance after 5 minutes, because each moment that someone's having, I think say each minute someone's having an epileptic seizure, they are losing, I think it's about 100 brain cells each time, like each minute. So obviously it can do a lot of damage if it goes over, like, and because the brain is being starved of oxygen as well.
yeah, of course.
So obviously it can do a lot of damage, and there's certain people out there, because if they have them in their sleep, they go through something called SUDEP, which is sudden unexpected death in epilepsy. And that is because some people may not be aware they're having them in their sleep. Like, for example, I wasn't aware that I have some in my sleep occasionally. It was a case of, obviously, as long as, it was only since I've been with Dom that I've noticed, because he says to me, oh yeah, you wake up sort of halfway through the night, like proper lashing out type thing. And I'm like, oh, do I? Sort of thing. Like, I'd never been aware. So obviously for infants and other people with other maybe medical conditions, something like that could sort of end their life.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah. So there are a few things that obviously that the doctors have tried you on different things to see if
Yes.
end your surgery, and the most recent one, end your surgery, end your epilepsy or your tics or whatever it is that they're trying to help you with. So obviously recently you had a surgery
Yes.
on your neck. Can we talk
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, we can talk about it. So obviously I've been put on lots of different medication. Like, I was originally, when I was first diagnosed, put on Keppra, and I have a feeling anybody else with epilepsy that's ever been put on Keppra has hated their moments with it, because it gives you something called Keppra rage, which is horrendous. I think my family wanted to kill me in that moment, because I was so horrible. And then I got put on like other medication. I can't really remember. And obviously I'm currently on ethosuximide. And obviously, looking back at all the medication with my neurologist, I've been put on a fair amount of medication for my migraines that have been epilepsy medication. And because it's still not controlled fully, like, I don't have the seizures, but when they do an EEG, they can see how many brain waves are still up there and
Yeah.
wiggling. So he gave me the option of a vagus nerve stimulation, which is a pacemaker for the brain. It so we'd been told about it a couple of months before. I had to have my EEG first to find out, obviously, it all, but he said that was an option, like, if I was still having issues with it. I was like, all right, sort of thing. We never, like, I printed off some information about it, but me and Mum never really spoke about it, but fully. And then we went to my neurology appointment. He said, oh yeah, you've still got a lot of brainwaves going on. You can either go on try one of these new medications, and then if they're not working, then we can talk about the VNS, which is the vagus nerve stimulation shortened. It's just a lot to say, so we'll just shorten it. And obviously I went home, researched the medications, and obviously I saw the side effects. I'm very sensitive to side effects. So if they've got the worst possible side effect imaginable, I will get it. So I I sat down with Mum and I was like, I don't think I can go through the I don't think I can go through the side effects of these medications, and I don't want to keep trial and error to find something that might work. I would really like to go through the VNS sort of thing. And she was like, oh, I don't really know how I feel about it. Obviously, it's putting you under surgery. What if it doesn't work? Blah, blah, blah. I don't really know what it entails. So obviously, I said to her, like, go off and research it, like, take as long as you need, sort of thing. We can sit down and talk about it at any point. Bear in mind, like, I've done all my research by this point before I'd made the decision.
Yeah.
But obviously, yes, I'm over 18, but I was never going to make the decision and be
Okay.
like, oh yeah, I'm going ahead on it. I don't care about what you guys think. I'd never go ahead with a surgery like that and not want my mum, especially my mum's approval. So obviously, I gave her time. She did her research. She watched how the surgery's done, which, as anyone that knows my mum knows, that is a very normal thing for her to do. Um, and obviously, she then, after I think it was about a week, came to the conclusion that she does think it'll be very beneficial for me, and if I want to go ahead with it, then like, who is she to stop me, type thing.
Yeah, of course.
And I was then like, okay. So we then wrote the email to my neurologist, because it's not my neurologist that does the surgery, it's a consultant under ENT, which is
Okay.
very peculiar. But then I realised obviously it's because it's your throat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I obviously sent the email on the 26th of November. I've made a vlog about it all, so I know all the dates. And then on the 15th of December, I got a letter and a notification on my NHS app to say he'd accepted my referral and that I'd get an appointment soon. And then
Yeah.
on the 20th of December, I got a letter to say I had an appointment for the 24th of January, which all I went to. And at that appointment, he just asked if I had any questions, like, introduced me to the guy that was going to be doing my surgery. Like, he didn't really ask me any questions about, like, whether all my conditions and stuff like that. Obviously, my consultant had obviously written quite a detailed letter. So obviously he just said to me, have you got any questions, anything you want to ask? I was like, no, I've done like a fair amount of my research myself, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
then he was like, all right, so we'll have, as it's classed as an urgent surgery because of what it's for, it'll be in the next 6 weeks. And I was like, all right, that's kind of a scary thought in that moment. I was like, ah, shit, sorry.
Fine. You're
I was
fine.
like, and I was like, that is quite scary, sort of thing. And I think after about 2 weeks, I was I was proper getting myself worked up, because I was like, I still haven't had the phone call, and like they'd said to me that I could literally get the phone call and be told to come in next week. So obviously I was getting myself very worked up. Not long after I went to the appointment, I started buying things to,
Mm.
like, obviously like open front things, because I was aware that I'd probably have hardly any motion in my shoulder, which surprisingly enough I have quite a lot of motion. And but that might just be because I'm so stubborn and I'm just pushing through.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely are.
and yeah, I then got a phone call on the 11th of February, which was to say they had a cancellation and wanted to know if I wanted to come in for my surgery on the 26th of February. So obviously there's no hesitation there. I was saying yes to that. And it's now, is it a Wednesday today?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's officially been a week since I've had it done.
Yes.
And I had my bandages taken off 2 days ago because I was having an allergic reaction to them. So we got scar 1 here, and then we got scar 2 under here. So, hold on, there we go. So this one is where the generator is fitted, because I can feel the generators around here. There. And then in here is where the cables are attached to my vagus nerve in my neck. So how it works is once it's turned on, which will be in the next 2 weeks, fingers crossed, I like it will auto sim, for example, on a repeated pattern. Like for example, I don't know what my repeated pattern be, but one I can think off the top of my head, every 5 minutes for 30 seconds. So it will then send a shock, not like it's like a pacemaker, so like like kind of like not really a defibrillation, but you know what I mean, like a shock to the vagus nerve, which will then go to the part of my brain that triggers the epilepsy, and hopefully try and keep them at bay. But obviously, there's also a way it can be triggered, which is swiping a magnet on it, which will be used, for example, if I feel like I'm having an aura before a seizure, if I'm already in a seizure, like family or friends around me can swipe it and hopefully shorten the seizure or improve my recovery time. But also, there's another way it can be triggered because it's on placed on top of my heart. If my heart rate drops or spikes, it will then send like a stimulation to it, because obviously your heart rate changing is a sign of seizures. But obviously it then is a bit difficult for like walking, doing any
Mm.
activities, because obviously if your heart rate rises, then obviously it's, yeah, I'm being stimulated.
But yeah, wow, it's a lot to think about, really. I think it's
It
crazy that
definitely,
you sit and you research all these things, because even for me with ADHD, like researching the medications, it's difficult, because some of the
yeah.
medications they just say like instant death, and you're like, what? What do you mean instant death? I was like, I don't want that. I'm not taking it. Like,
Yeah.
so it is very nerve wracking, but for you to take the step, and obviously I know Kiera, and I normally know when she's going into surgery, but I didn't know anything about this. She just popped up with a video on TikTok and was like, "Hi everyone, I got a surgery in my neck, and it's actually quite a big deal." And I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah. I kept it like very quiet because I don't think before my surgery I was in the mental space to be able to obviously explain
god!" Yeah,
what it was, and obviously I just had this fear that obviously it was going to be cancelled, sort of thing. So I just didn't say. Obviously, my nearest and dearest knew, like my family, a couple of my very close friends, like obviously Dom knew, and I think there was one other person that knew. But other than that, I kept it very hush hush type thing,
yeah,
because I just, in a way, I wanted to be sure that it happened type thing.
yeah. Because
And yeah,
there's sometimes I feel like situations where the system with like doctors and all that, it does let you down sometimes. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
I
And
recently,
like, and it's quite daunting, the fact that obviously I thought through a lot of what the side effects were going to be, like achy, like limited motion type things like that. But the one thing I did not consider, which I don't suffer with as much now, but in the first couple of days after it was done, how aware I was of my heartbeat
mm,
and the blood like rushing through the vein in my neck.
yeah, oh yeah,
Oh, I did not take that into consideration in the slightest. That was a horrible feeling, but obviously I haven't really been in like major pain. It's just been weight bearing on this shoulder that I've struggled
yeah,
with. And obviously I've got quite a lot of bruising, like I keep saying that I look mouldy. Um and but the nerve in my neck, because I don't know if I can say it on here, but obviously if I can't then bleep it out. But the nerve has to be removed slightly
yeah,
to attach the wires. So obviously
yeah,
that hasn't gone back into its correct place fully yet, and it's really swollen. So I can feel that.
Yeah, oh gosh. No, you
Yeah,
can say that on here. Honestly, it sounds very nerve wracking, but hopefully it's going to be something positive for you. And
yeah, fingers crossed.
fingers crossed. Um, because I don't think I've ever heard of this. Is it like a new thing that they're starting to do?
I wouldn't say it's new, but obviously it's only really used in cases of like epilepsy and stuff like that, but
Mm,
they're hoping to use it for like other things, so like patients with dementia and Alzheimer's. They're hoping to one day use it for certain like gastro like issues and
mm,
stuff like that. So obviously it is becoming like a bigger thing, and obviously
yeah,
it's going to be used for so much more than obviously,
it is very
because
interesting.
obviously the vagus nerve really controls the whole nervous system in like the human body.
Yeah. So, is this with you for life now, or could they remove, or could they like remove it, or?
Um, for the most part, it will be with me for the rest of my life. The only thing that will have to be removed and changed is obviously the generator.
Yeah.
They last for 5 to 8 years, depending on how many times they're triggered. But obviously, the thing I'm not looking forward to is the fact that things like security systems in shops I may set off,
Yeah.
because obviously I'm going to be magnetic. Um,
The robot guys.
yeah, that was actually the first thing Libby said to me when we told her about my surgery. Is she going to be a robot? Um, and obviously security in airports, which to be honest, I'm not planning on really going in an airport anytime soon, but that could obviously trigger it.
Yeah.
And obviously, we don't know about certain other things that are magnets, but I feel like I'm just a walking metal detector.
You are.
And
Yes,
I
you
know
definitely.
for a fact, obviously, because I'm going to have like a bracelet thing with a little magnet on, apparently that attracts cutlery. So I'm just going to be walking around with like knives and forks attached to me.
Oh my goodness. Um. Oh goodness. So on the list of things that you gave me, I do. There's two more things I want to cover.
Yep,
First, I just would like to know what TMJ is.
TMJ. That's a fun one.
Just having a little drink break, guys. I'm gonna have some
Yeah,
more.
that's actually the new cream soda Pepsi.
Oh, was it nice?
Yeah, it's well nice. They've got it in little Tesco's at the moment for £3.50 on Club Card.
Going on TikTok.
Giving out helpful, useful information on the podcast. Um, so TMJ is obviously temporomandibular joint dysfunction.
It's obviously. I love the way you go. It's obviously. If you didn't know, guys, obviously.
I make everyone sound so bad there, but that is the your temporomandibular joint is here in your face, and from the pure amount of absence seizures I had before I was diagnosed, which I was
Mm,
having them for about 18 months every day, and I, with my absence seizures, I grind my jaw side to side.
oh,
So obviously I was wearing away at the disc in my joint, like
mm-hmm.
inside my jaw. So obviously I then went to GPs at 14 and was like, "Oh, I've got really bad pain. I think I might have an ear infection." And obviously they did all the tests, checked all my ear fluid, blah blah, poked along here, and they could feel how like raised this side is.
Mm,
And it's obviously I was meant to be seeing I saw a consultant at the Paget, and then was then referred to Norfolk and Norwich, and I then he did my first surgery on my jaw, but it never really did anything. When it first happened, my jaw was locked at 1 centimetre.
mm-hmm. Oh,
So obviously, if you look at a ruler, how big 1 centimetre is, that is how far my mouth could open for 6 months.
for 6 months.
Yep. So obviously, my diet literally consisted of any drink I could drink through a straw, ice cream, custard, and super noodles. and the occasional piece of pasta. So that was difficult. And then we came across a consultant in Nottingham called Mr. Sidebottom. I doubt he'll see this, but he's absolutely fabulous. I will sing his prayers for the rest of my life. He obviously then took me on as a patient. He did the rest of my surgeries. He also did a Botox injection and 2 lots of steroid injections. Anyone that's never had like Botox injections for health conditions, be aware, they're bloody painful. Like, it gives you no cosmetic benefit.
Great.
So then recently I went to see a consultant again at Norfolk and Norwich because I don't really know what happened. I just disappeared off their system for a while. And she wants me to go and have an MRI scan. I was supposed to have it before my VNS was fitted because obviously magnetic fields and all that. And I sorry, got away with the ferries.
You're all right.
So yeah, I've meant to have an MRI scan to see how much damage has obviously been done. But when Mr. Sidebottom, sorry, went in and did a camera in my jaw, which is only what big hospitals can do, because obviously like places like North Norwich and Paget don't have the equipment to do that. He saw that I've got a hole in the disc in my jaw. So obviously he was hoping to remove my disc before he retired, but obviously he ran out of time. And obviously I was going through physiotherapy at Nottingham, but then I disappeared off their system as well. So it may be a case of once I've had the MRI, I'm going to have to be referred back to one of them to obviously do further tests on whether there is still a hole in my disc and how bad it is.
Blimey.
So that could be another surgery. But one I did forget to tell you about is my sliding hiatus hernia.
I don't even know. I don't even know what these things are.
No. So a sliding hiatus hernia is a piece of your stomach that goes through like a little hole, and like obviously every time I eat, it moves.
Right.
So
Okay.
I've got to go for a test to find out whether it's going to be a case of if they do a surgery to tighten that little hole, whether it will help or cause more damage, which entails a tube going down my nose and into my stomach. But that's for another day.
Wow, you are so brave. The last thing I want to ask you about, because if you have still got time, is obviously something that's more in my field of things, and that is obviously anxiety. I think I've spoken about it on the pod before. Obviously, I suffer with anxiety, where I can't even leave the house. So obviously, Kiera has to travel a little bit to go to her partner's house, and she still goes out and about, even though obviously she has got to deal with these things on a day-to-day basis. But can you just talk us through a little bit your anxiety, the things you do to cope with it, if you take any medications for it, how you got along with them, like that kind of thing?
So I don't take any medication for my anxiety. I try to sort of deal with it myself, and obviously I know that's not always the best solution, but obviously realistically I know my triggers for my anxiety. I know what sort of irritates them, so I do obviously, if I can, I steer clear of them. If I can't, then obviously I take a medication called clobazam, which is kind of an anti-anxiety, but that's more for like if my tics are really playing up and I need them to sort of calm down. But obviously if I know I've got to go somewhere that I really don't like, then sometimes I'll just take half of the anxiety tablets, just try and keep, because obviously if I'm then getting overwhelmed and very anxious, then obviously I'll either start fitting or I'll start ticking, and that makes situations 10 times worse.
Yeah.
But they've said that obviously this VNS device is also used for like mental health, so like anxiety and depression. And obviously I'm not diagnosed with depression, and I'm not like, I don't want to be, but obviously they have said that like I have got a severe low mood, because obviously I feel like anyone that's going through what I'm going through is going to have their bad days and be like, I don't know if I can continue fighting anymore, sort of
Cool.
thing. But then for me, I may sit there and think, oh, I don't know if I can keep doing this anymore. I want to be different. I'll then sort of sit there and think, actually, there's so many people out there. Yes, there may be people out there that are better off than me, but there's also people out there that are worse off than me.
Of course.
So if they can continue fighting, so can I. So obviously, I've now made it my mission to, obviously, because when I was diagnosed with a fair amount of my conditions, first of all, we had no clue that they even existed. And second of all, there was literally no support out there for them. So, like my non epileptics, I was diagnosed with them 7 years ago. And I think there was one website in the whole of Google that had the most tiniest piece of information about non epileptics.
Yeah, I'd never heard of non-epileptic fits like.
No, but obviously there are so many people out there nowadays that have been diagnosed with it. And obviously, I don't want a child to be the age I was with no support. Like, I think my biggest struggle has always been that I feel like nobody understands. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, yes, I have support. Yes, they'll understand to like the emotional side of it, but they'll never understand the physical,
Yeah.
like how it feels laying there hours on end while I'm fitting, or how it feels when I'm ticking and I can't communicate and I've just hurt somebody I love.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Like, they'll never, obviously, I feel like that part's never really understood. Hello? You still there? We will wait for a brief intermission. It's a brief intermission because Kay has disappeared. We're having a brief intermission. A brief intermission. A brief intermission. Tune, tune, tune in. She's run away. I don't know if I should continue talking and she can still hear me and she's just lost her camera, but you know. Oh no, she's gone.
Oh no! There's Melanie. That's a shame, she was really nice.
Oh, sugar. Is she coming back? Hello. We'll
Hello.
just sit here and talk.
Mm.
So obviously, yeah, I don't want there to be a child that then gets diagnosed and feels like there's nobody out there that understands them.
Yeah. Cool.
Like, obviously, the more I've been doing my TikTok page, the amount of people that have obviously that I know and that like I know outside of TikTok, stuff like that, that have come up to me and is like, oh yeah, I actually suffer from that condition, but I've never wanted to tell anybody because like I've been too ashamed, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So like I've always said, as long as it helps, even if it helps just one person with having the strength to keep going on, then
Mm.
that is enough for me. Like, I could talk for hours on end about my conditions. Like, I have no embarrassment. I have no shame in what I'm going through. Like, I shouldn't be ashamed at the end of the day. Nobody should be ashamed because they didn't choose them battles.
No,
Like, I saw on TikTok a quote that said, if your path is hard now, it's because your calling in life is higher.
I saw that and I was like, yes, I love
And
that.
I love that quote because at the end of the day, I've always wondered if there was anything better for me sort of coming in the future. Like, that's why I did the TikTok about asking what everybody's dreams are. Like, because at the end of the day, we've all got to have something positive to sort of look forward to.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Because if not, we're going to go insane.
Exactly that. And I think it is a lot about that, and sometimes dealing with things like disabilities, mental health especially.
Yeah. They aren't a great combo to try and deal with together.
They're definitely not. And sometimes when you're going through these things and your parents go like, I love you, like I know how it feels, or I know that you're struggling, and you're like, no, you don't. You really
No.
don't.
And obviously you don't want to lash out at anybody and be like, no, you don't actually know what I'm going through, sort of thing.
No, because you
But
like
that's what I just say, I know you're trying.
yeah, I know Brian is the best one. I think it is like in every situation you've got to think about how that person is feeling, because obviously,
Yeah.
like you've said, some people are fully aware when they're seizing. Some
Yeah.
people hear what you're saying. So if you're panicking and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? That person is hearing you freak
That's the
out.
same as obviously if someone around me is panicking when I'm having a non-epileptic, I can hear everything. And like that can go on for like my longest one has been 18 hours. And obviously laying there for 18 hours, listening to the world continue on around you, everyone you love talking, having conversations, eating food.
Because you're hungry.
Yeah.
That's the worst one, I bet. Were you at home? Were you in a hospital?
Yeah, I was at home.
Okay. Oh my God.
I was in my bed. But oh my God, I was so hungry.
Thirsty, I bet, as well. Like,
I could have, yeah, I could have eaten a cow, but I was more worried about the food than I was than the
what
water.
did you have? What did you eat when you came around?
I think I just went straight to sleep, to be honest.
No.
Because, like, honestly, I was literally, I opened my eyes and my eyes were on fire because obviously my eyes roll backwards and my eyelids are just flickering constantly.
Oh.
So obviously my eyes were so sore and like on fire, so I just ended up falling asleep and then I ate when I woke up because this was like the 18 hours was like all through the night.
So when was this?
A couple of years ago now.
Yes, because so obviously I'm going to tell a little funny story about Kiera. So obviously I've known Kiera like actually spoken to you since I was 14.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think I was about 15, which has
So
been about
about
6 years.
6 years ago, yeah. So one of my things about Kiera is like obviously I've never experienced you tick, I've never experienced you seize, nothing like that. But when we were close, we were at a party and Kiera wasn't meant to be drinking because she's not supposed to drink sometimes apparently because of her, obviously like your medication and what. And she was just sneaking shots the whole night, and I was like, "Stop!" And your mum was going, "I see you. Stop drinking. You're not meant to be drinking." And she's just sneaking shots, and honestly, it was like
That was when my mental health was in quite a bad place, and obviously I know drinking wasn't the answer for it, but
of course,
that was when I was in quite a
yeah,
difficult place, and obviously I think around that time I'd just been diagnosed with, or around the time I was my non-epileptics, so I think I was about 15 at that point,
yeah,
and I was really struggling, and like I didn't know what to do with myself at that point, so I think I was kind of
yeah. I think
that night I was kind of masking.
you were kind of like, "Fuck this." Sorry, mind my French, but I think you were just like, "Fuck this. I'm gonna
Yeah.
on." And it's like understandable. I think even in my life, obviously, I deal with physical things, but nowhere near as much as you have. But most of mine is like mental. And there has been times where I just don't want to have a normal life. I just want to do nothing, and I'm like, fuck this shit. I've had enough.
Yeah,
It's
and like
completely
there's a lot of the time when obviously my seizures and my tics are having like are just fighting each other. I'm either ticking or I'm fitting. Like I ain't getting no break. I'm just like I just I just want to scream and just tell them all to fuck off
yeah,
because like I just want one day where I'm a 21-year-old
yeah,
with a life,
of
not
course.
sitting here trying to insult random strangers on the street.
No, but
We are
just
going to go into some of my most offensive tics because, yeah, I feel like I would be cancelled.
yeah, 100%. I have seen you tick. When me and you was FaceTiming a lot, it was when you used to hit your head, and I'd be like,
Yes.
oh please, Kiera, please be careful.
I'm now
But
going to have to be really careful because I usually hit this shoulder, and obviously that's where my
uh,
device is, so I don't want to break that.
yeah, be careful. Obviously, with having these kind of things, I guess it's also stressful. With having You're in a relationship. You've been in. How long have you been with Dom for?
It will be 1 year and 3 months in a couple of days on the 7th.
Okay, so obviously you can't. I'm assuming you can't make plans because you never know what's going to happen.
No, like obviously if it's plans of like him coming here, then it's not really a big deal if obviously I'm fitting because mum can just let him in, sort of thing.
Yeah, of course.
But like obviously we can't make plans until really the day of
Yeah,
because we never know what my body's going to be wanting to do.
yeah, of course. I want to talk a little bit about, just quickly, you as a person anyway, because obviously you've spoken a lot about your conditions and the things
Yeah.
you do on a day to day. Obviously, you did go to college. You have
Yes, I
studied.
did.
I will link your photography account as well, because
Why,
guys,
thank you.
Kira is a photographer and she's a really good
A
photographer,
very
and
talented one at that.
she is very talented. Yes, and that's your dream. You want to be a photographer and you want to speak about your conditions. And I think you should be able
Yes,
to.
definitely. That's why I've said on my medical page that I want to make an inclusive like photography company, and like someone said to me, "Oh, ain't like all photography companies inclusive?" I'm like, for the
No.
most part, I think they probably are, but like with situations like autism, sensory issues, and stuff like that, they ain't really gonna have the time and the patience to be like, okay, we'll dull the lights, we'll block out a longer slot type thing,
Yeah.
so that obviously it doesn't become overstimulating and overwhelming for him.
Yeah, of course.
Like obviously learning to adapt around like people not liking the big bright lights or the flashes on cameras and stuff like that, because obviously when you take a picture in a big studio, 99% of the time the camera is linked to the lights, so
Cool.
obviously there's a big flash, so obviously remembering not to have them go off, and like even for young children that have photosensitive epilepsy, making sure the flashes don't go off.
Yeah, because there'll be families out there that won't ever have
Exactly.
a family photo because their child's.
Exactly. And like obviously I don't want parents to feel like their child has to act a certain way to get photos, because at the end of the day it's all about the child being comfortable, the child feeling like
Mm,
they're in a calm environment, whether that means have like if I do build my own studio, having a separate one for like a sensory room, so that obviously if the child needs 5 minutes away to calm down, then obviously there's like sensory toys in there. There's like the bubble
mm,
mats. Do you know the ones I'm talking about?
yes, I do.
Yeah, there's like them in there, like the fish tank thing,
Yeah. Oh,
tower
love
thing,
those. Love
stuff
those.
like that. Like just for anyone to use, really.
This is like, yeah, it's. I think it's incredible that obviously you have challenges, but you have a dream, and it's not. because there's a lot of
Mm.
people that would just not even have that, and you're thinking about helping other people, even
Yeah.
though you're struggling.
That'll always be like my mindset, is to I always have put others before myself, which hasn't always worked out the most beneficial for me, but I'm not ashamed of doing that, because at the end of the day, I am who I am, and I ain't gonna change that for anybody.